Good morning, explorers, and welcome back to another episode of More to Explore. My name is Brian Bird, and I'll be your co-host today, along with Explore.org's resident naturalist, Mike Fitz. Mike, good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Brian. And yeah, good afternoon to everybody around the world who happens to be watching us. It's one of the great things about Explore.org. Brian and I are on opposite sides of the continent. Basically, I'm on the East Coast, he's on the West Coast, but we have the opportunity to talk with people all over the world. And if you're new to Explore.org, welcome to the community and welcome back to all of our longtime viewers. We're the world's largest live nature cam network.
And we have a jam-packed show today, starting off with the puffins. And as you can see, we have a live shot of the puffin burrow here, which looks like it seems like it's been getting readjusted at the moment by the island staff. But we're going to be talking all about the drama that's been unfolding on the puffin burrow, and also get a behind-the-scenes look from how our team installs these cams from our field technician BJ. And then we have so much more. We have new cheetah cams, we have a condor chick, and many more updates on Egg Watch. Plus, as a bonus, at the end of today's episode, we'll be joined by our director of new media, Candace, to give us the latest updates on the new Explore.org commenting system.
Yeah, and if you have questions or comments for us, please drop those in the chats. We'll be looking for them during the broadcast today. Of course, let us and everyone else know which cams you're watching this week. As Brian mentioned, we're looking at looking at the puffin burrow, and yeah, Brian, we have some great stories today. I think our three main stories really feature special species of wildlife that people have been dedicating their lives to protecting, and sharing the stories of these animals really is only possible through the dedication of those people who work to ensure that Earth's future includes things like cheetahs and condors and puffins. And for me, the return of the Atlantic puffin to their breeding islands off the coast of Maine is perhaps the surest sign that spring is truly here. So yeah, welcome to Seal Island National Wildlife Refuge in the Gulf of Maine. Our cam partner for this camera is the National Audubon Society's Seabird Institute, which is formerly known as Project Puffin. It's about 20 miles south of Rockland, Maine, and it's the site of a restored puffin breeding colony. So this is a place where they nested historically, and then the colony was wiped out, and then the puffins colony was restored through a lot of hard work. Puffins were long imperiled in the Gulf of Maine. Breeding puffins, were eliminated from all but one colony in Maine by the late 1800s due to egg collecting and excessive hunting. People also thoroughly modified coastal Maine in ways that favored the survival of gulls and other birds that can displace or prey on young puffins and other seabirds like terns that nest on these islands. So it was a real profound loss for the island ecosystems and their habitats in the Gulf of Maine. Luckily, intact puffin colonies remained farther north in Atlantic Canada. So in the 1970s, Steve Kress, a biologist, pioneered a restoration effort for puffins in the Gulf of Maine. He began by translocating chicks that were anywhere from like 3 to 40 days old from intact and healthy colonies on Great Island, Newfoundland, to artificial burrows on islands in the Gulf of Maine. So in those artificial burrows, the pufflings, as they're known, were reared and fledged. But there was a hiccup in this process. Puffins, like many seabirds, utilize isolated colonies to raise their young, but initially breeding puffins didn't return to nest on the restored islands. Steve Kress realized that puffins are social birds, and I think this is just a great example of that. Dozens of puffins just in this one shot. So puffins not only had to imprint on the island where they fledged, but also experience indications that the island is safe to breed when they returned. So in other words, they needed to see and hear other seabirds on breeding islands. So Steve Kress began using decoys and playback of audio recordings of puffins and other birds to trick the puffins into thinking that the island was already inhabited by breeding birds and therefore safe to raise their own young. So in this social attraction strategy worked, and it's been actually transferred to help restore breeding bird populations around the world. The technique, though, was first, again, used on Eastern Egg Rock, which is southwest of Seal Island. And then in the mid to late 1980s at Seal Island. Something around 950 chicks were translocated there, and breeding was first documented in 1992 with 7 pairs. Then in 2012, there were about 200 pairs, and there's probably more pairs on the island
Wow.
now. So really a fantastic success story with our puffins in Seal Island. It's a real special place. It's a special privilege for those of us at Explore.org to be able to share puffins with the world. Of course, the cams don't appear by magic. So to learn more about how the cams were repaired and improved this year, and there was some major work that needed to be done, I spoke with BJ Kirschhofer, a field technician for Explore.org. So here's our latest installment of Tales from the Field.
Sorry, Mike. I think we're having a little bit of difficulties with the interview here. If we want to move on, I'll try to fix that, and we could probably swing back to it.
Yeah, we can do that. Good thing I wasn't mumbling to myself about something uh something going on. Yeah, so Brian, he's pushing all the buttons. I think he's doing the hard work for these shows. So I always thank him at the end of these when we're not live on the air for his hard work, but I should thank him on the air for that every once in a while. So thanks, Brian, for doing that. uh, we'll get back to the interview with BJ in just a second, but I wanted to talk maybe about the Puffin burrow and what's been going on there this year. Sort of introduce you to maybe the Puffin season and uh, who we can the characters that we can learn about and watch on the Puffin burrow camp. So Atlantic puffins, they lay 1 egg per year in excavated burrows or rock crevices. And this Puffin burrow cam is just a fantastic example of that. Individual puffins are also long-lived. They can have lifespans of more than 20 years, maybe upwards of 30 years. Our Puffin burrow cam showcases the breeding home of Willie, who's the male, and Millie, who have nested in this burrow for many years. They'll share incubation, brooding, and feeding duties until their single chick fledges this summer with any luck. And yeah, somebody I think did mention in maybe the YouTube chat, they were like, did Mike just say puffling? And that is correct. Yeah, like that is, I don't know if that's the proper name for a not yet fledged puffin chick, but that's what we call them, pufflings. So I'm not sure who coined that term, but yeah, you can call them that. At this time of the year, generally, this is the incubation period. So egg laying, incubation, that happens in May and June. June begins the hatching season. And then late June through early August is chick rearing. Late July to mid-August, that's generally when the pufflings fledge. In 2023, just to give you a bit of a comparison to maybe what we might experience this year, Willie and Millie, their puffling hatched on June 1, which was much earlier than their average. And this year, the staff out on Seal Island with the Seabird Institute have said that, yeah, it seems like nesting did begin earlier than average again this year. So we could see a similar timing of hatching and fledging this year. So last year with Millie and Millie, their puffling fledged overnight on July 22nd, which was also earlier than most years. And typically the pufflings leave their burrows at night and go directly to sea when they're about 40 days old or so. A growing population of puffins on Seal Island is good news for the survival of puffins in the Gulf of Maine, but that also has consequences for individual birds. Demand for nesting burrows can certainly lead to conflict, and we saw that recently within the last few days. On May 18 and 19, especially, a different puffin, this is footage from that scene, a different puffin entered the burrow and fought with Willie for dominance and possession of this burrow. This really was a struggle for reproductive survival. Fighting among puffins is is most frequent in defense of a burrow during the period of egg laying. So this was a really intense fight between these two birds. It just wasn't a one-off fight either. The intruder came back more than once. And at one point, it looked like he displaced Willie and Millie out of the burrow and then rolled the egg out of the burrow. It was like, this is mine. I don't want your egg in here. I'm going to set up shop. I'm going to attract the new lady and we're going to make a home here. But Willie and Millie returned. They were able to, finally, it looked like they were able to displace the intruder and they rolled their egg back in. It doesn't look like the egg was damaged. And they've been guarding it and incubating it since that time. We don't, and they even tipped the camera over, as you can see here. So staff out on the island had to go back and move the camera at least a couple of times due to the struggle between those birds. We don't know much about the intruder. The bill color certainly is different. It's a bit of a paler colored bill especially than Willie. Maybe he's a maturing puffin looking to establish dominance over a burrow and attract a mate. Maybe he was a late arrival on the island and couldn't find an unoccupied burrow to make his own. Maybe he had a burrow and someone else took it over and, he's just looking to make do the best he can. Maybe this is an older bird whose mate didn't return. Maybe he got kicked out of his own burrow. We can speculate. There's a ton of different reasons. But we also know there appears to be unoccupied places on Seal Island for puffins to nest too. So could be a bunch of different reasons. We'd have to ask the bird specifically, but that's a task that we can't quite accomplish yet. So it's easy to anthropomorphize puffins as comical and clownish with their colorful beaks, their tuxedo-like body feathers. But that viewpoint, in my opinion, really obscures and distracts us from the realities of their lives, which are filled with as many hardships as any other creature. Brian, there's maybe one more thought that I had to share about Willie and Millie and their burrow and the struggles that they've experienced recently. But I wanted to ask if we wanted to cut back to Tales from the Field.
Yep, let's get to it. So here it is with BJ, our field technician, our latest installment of Tales in the Field.
BJ, thanks for being here. Great to talk with you one more time.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks, Mike.
So, yeah, I hear you had quite some adventures out on Seal Island. And getting to Seal Island, where the puffin camps are located, is an adventure in itself. First, it's more than a 20-mile boat trip from Rockland, Maine. Then the wind and the tides must be favorable for you to get safely on the island. So what was your experience like?
Yeah, so the first leg of the trip from Montana over to Maine was pretty easy, quick flight over to Boston, and then driving about 3 hours north from there up to Rockland, which was a gorgeous drive. I haven't spent a lot of time over there, and so it was kind of, that part was very nice for me. And then we hopped on a boat, and it was really our whole trip was kind of in a fog bank. The captain kept pointing out things that would be visible had there not been fog, and he said there'd be nice homes over here or a lighthouse over here or whatever over here, and all we could see is the inside of the cloud, and then the occasional, or maybe more than occasional, buoy for the lobster traps that are down below. And so most of the captain's concentration, from my perspective, seemed to be on making sure that we didn't run over any of the fishing gear that was out.
Yeah, and when you're in fog like that, it is so disorienting. Like, I am so thankful for things like compasses. Well, and now GPS.
And GPS, totally. An our actual arrival there at the island, you could see on the screens that there was a sort of a crescent-shaped island in front of us, and the captain had slowed the boat way down and said, there's an island here somewhere, and you would, kind of pulse forward, and we would coast. And we'd look around and, didn't see anything again, pulse forward and coast and pulse forward and coast. He was watching the depths and out the window pretty closely. And then all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, this island sort of just appeared. So it was, the whole thing was definitely an adventure.
And we talked before about the necessity of preparation during cam installs. And I think that's maybe even more important for a place like Seal Island, because it's so far removed from the mainland. It's difficult to get to. So, the difficulty of all of that, the remoteness of the site, make preparation even more important. What specific precautions did you make for this trip?
Yeah, if you think about it, anytime you're trying to build something, how many times you might go to the hardware store. That wasn't an option for us. That would have been an hour and a half boat ride each direction, even if something was open on the mainland. So Joe and I and anybody else that, in this case, Mark Muller, who was on the trip with us, we go through great lengths to ensure that we have almost everything that we need. We build good lists, we pack extras, and then through, of course, all the other sites that we've been to, we think, what are the few pieces that we wish we would have had in those sticky situations? And so try not to overpack, because of course you have to carry everything up and down, but do your best to build your lists and build your equipment up, and kind of what Joe and I've spent a lot of time on here in the last 6 months is what you're seeing here on the screen, is these new solar frames that we're building. So we're trying to minimize the number of parts that we need and pre-build everything before it even gets to the site. So assembly becomes quite quick. We can hold more solar than we used to in the past, which is good, because we're using Starlink now, which is more energy intensive, where it consumes much more energy. And then we can kind of use those same solar stands in the places where the cameras are too, providing more energy and hopefully more uptime.
And on the island as well, I mean, it was a rough winter for the coast of Maine. Maine was hammered with powerful storms last winter. The first one hit in December 2023, and then another one came like 2 weeks later in early January, and then there was another really powerful storm in April, and there was historically high tides associated with those, hurricane force winds to some parts of the coast. So what were you anticipating when you arrived on the island as far as like damage to the camera systems, and did the camera systems sustain any significant damage?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I wasn't actually supposed to go out to Maine, and a few days before, Chris Pennock, who we work with there from the Audubon Society, he gave us a call and said, "Hey, I made it out to the island. Look at my pictures." And as Joe and I were flipping through these things, we had something like a 20 or 30-foot mast that held a big antenna that would deliver the internet from the mainland. That entire thing was bent in half. That's what you're seeing there. We had to shorten it. And you can see there's additional stabilizers on there now, but right there at the base plate where it connects to the rock there, that was bent in half and completely folded down. There's most of the island is I'm guessing underneath that rock that you're seeing there. There is a lot of grasses and things there, but any place that it seems the wind or water could have peeled that grass up, it almost like folded it over, almost like it was some sort of turf or sod or something like that. And so the forces were apparent, and very, very strong there. We have another site kind of that gathers all of the cameras for the Puffins and the Guillemot, and that box that holds all our batteries, that had gotten water in it. I mean, whatever happened out there was truly forceful, and I'm happy there were no people on there to witness it, because I'm sure it would have been pretty nasty.
I was trying to watch the gray seal cams last December during that storm, and it looked intense. And or the cameras didn't make it through that first storm in December, and then there was those other ones. So I'm glad that we have the Puffin cams back now. I know it's a ton of work. And not only were you like repairing the systems, but you're also stabilizing them, improving the power system. So what did you do as far as those updates to the system?
Yeah, you can see there the tower that we that was folded over. We put additional legs on there. So hopefully that makes it a little bit stronger for the future. We also put Starlink in down below, the time lapse you were looking at earlier. This is a good picture of the Starlink system we put in. So we added not only additional solar to that system, but we also we're kind of building these A-frame style supports now, and these we tie into the rock with rock anchors, and I think they're going to be pretty strong, being that they are a triangle, and so hopefully we'll be able to stand up to greater winds. The nice thing about something like this is that everything's all on one platform, and so if a nasty storm comes through, potentially we have a greater chance of everything making it, since we're just in this tight little package. If you got stuff kind of spread all over the place, there's more chance for wires to get broken and things like that, taking out our gear.
And finally, what's it what or excuse me, what was it like for you to see this location in person? I've been to Seal Island, but that was like in November, and it was kind of empty of wildlife except for some seals that were already hanging out on the island. But I haven't been there when there were puffins. So what was that experience like for you?
It was very cool. It seems like the almost by the hour the island changes. Of course, we stayed out there because it was an hour and a half trip back, and we stayed in tents. That's just how the researchers have always done it out there. They have these nice little platforms. So it was quite comfortable actually in my little tent, despite the nasty weather at times. And you'd wake up in the morning and there would be Arctic tern, or I think it's Arctic terns anyways, circling the far end of the island, and there would just be, probably thousands, I have no idea, but tons and tons of these birds circling and making their calls. When the puffins were kind of coming in and out, that was very cool to see. If you go to the far end of the island, they would either be hanging out on the rocks like you see on the cams, or they would be out there fishing. And then at night, when you finally went to bed after a long day's work, there's storm petrels that you don't see during the day, but you hear during the night. And Google the noise that storm petrels make. It is absolutely bizarre. And so you'd be laying in your tent and hearing these critters out there thinking like, what is that? That is so bizarre. So anyways, it was a very cool place to visit, an absolutely beautiful island, kind of this mix of rock and grasses and animals, and just a very, very cool place to be.
Well, I'm glad you had that experience, and we're all glad for it as well because we get to enjoy the puffin camps now. So BJ, thanks so much for your time and the hard work of Joe and you and your team to get those cameras operating for us.
Thanks for your interest. This is great.
And I want to thank BJ Kershaw, field technician for Explore.org, for taking the time out of his day to share that information with us and help us learn about his experiences out on the island. You heard BJ at the end mention the sounds of storm petrels that he heard out there. Now, the specific species, I had to refresh my memory. I didn't really know off the top of my head. I had to refresh my memory. The specific species that's going to be nesting on Seal Island is going to be the Leach's storm petrel. That's not spelled like a leech, that like a blood-sucking leech. It's Leach. But I think we have, the call. We'll be able to drop those in the chats. You can look up from somebody who uploaded a call to eBird. So look in the chat if you want to hear that noise. It is definitely a wild and different sound.
Very cool.
Brian, I think we had a puffin question come in the meantime, if we want to pull that up real quick, and then we can, in a moment, just move on. I know we got a ton of stuff to talk about. Puffins they certainly are fascinating birds, but somebody was wondering, how can you tell the male and female puffin apart? And really you have to look at the bill shape and size of it. It's going to be larger, longer in males. Their heads overall and proportionally are going to be larger than the females. But if you're just like staring at a group of birds like this, I don't think you can tell. The birds are very, very good at knowing. And also their bills reflect ultraviolet light in ways that we can't see with our own eyes, but the birds can see. So maybe there could be some differences there as well that they're cueing in on that we cannot. But yeah, look for the bill size. Of course, if early in the season with the puffin cams, you might, if it comes on early and the laying is a little bit later than average, and we see that female laying eggs. But just from glancing at a group of birds like this, we're not really going to be able to know. There can be also very slight, subtle differences in the pairs, not only just in bill size, but like in color and things like that. And our sharp-eyed hardcore fans, in the Puffin chat, will be able to help explore that with you a little bit more. I don't have those details in front of me right now. But yeah, ask in that chat if you're curious about it. One more point though that I wanted to make about puffins before we move on is that in 2016 I really wasn't paying attention to the puffin cams, but that summer Willie and his previous mate Billy were the ones who invaded burrow 59 and displaced the puffins who occupied the burrow. So competition and conflict therefore are not strange or unexpected events for puffins. This is something that Willie did in the past. We spent a lot of time talking about how he had to fight off an intruder. And I know that can be really shocking and hard for people to watch, but Willie did the same thing in the past. So this is kind of like a part of their life. The greatest threat to puffins, though, isn't really competition for breeding burrows. It's really the risks posed by climate change. So I want everyone to kind of keep that in mind as well. If we want to help these birds succeed, it's really, especially in the Gulf of Maine, it's highly tied to how fast we work to transition away from fossil fuels. Because the faster we can do that, the healthier the oceans are going to be. We need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We need to keep plastics out of the ocean, and we need to ensure that our fisheries are sustainable. So through those efforts, we can really help to ensure the return of puffins and or the future of puffins, and of course the health of our planet's oceans. Brian, though, that's a lot to talk about puffins, and we still got more to talk about. But moving on to the other side of the West Coast, let's head to California.
Yeah, coming over to the West Coast near Big Sur, California. I'm super excited for the return of the condor nest, which we did discover has a chick inside. And some of our viewers will remember Nico from the last time we had the condor nest up, who survived the Dolan fire and then was pushed out of the nest, but was luckily able to be rehabbed and released again into the wild. So truly an incredible story, and so I'm looking forward to see the life of this new chick.
Yeah, this will be so fun to watch. Iniko's story is really amazing. And now we have this new bird to follow with Redwood Queen right here, the mother of this bird. So I think if you were to choose a species to represent sort of like the perils of what humanity can do to species, and then also the success that's possible when people dedicate themselves to protecting a species, California condors might be on your short list. In 1982, just to remind everybody, only 23 condors survived, 23
Wow.
individuals. And then and by 1987, there were none in the wild. The only condors in existence were captives at the San Diego Zoo and Los Angeles Zoo. Those birds were captured out of the wild. And since then, through captive rearing efforts, measures to reduce harms of lead poisoning, greater habitat protections, reintroductions of condors in parts of their historic range, the population of wild condors has increased to 344, according to the Ventana Wildlife Society when I last checked, just last week. And there's about 100 living in the Big Sur flock, which is the flock that we get to see on our condor cams, or at least with this nest cam. These are birds we can watch on Explode.org, again, thanks to our partnership with the Ventana Wildlife Society. This redwood tree has witnessed both the triumph and tragedy with condors. It's currently occupied by a dominant pair, number 190, Redwood Queen, and her mate, number 650, Zenith. Brian, we lost the condor cams in Big Sur for a long while last winter. So I think you have maybe a little bit more information about that.
Yeah, so you think about, like, with the puffins, it's unpredictable for these severe storms. And in this case, there was extreme weather where there's just super high winds. And so what happened was this is also on solar power, where they're mounted up. The winds just completely ripped them off the mount and blew them down the mountain. So, but luckily, since they're up now, we were able to retrieve those, get some new equipment out there, and mount it more securely in case any of those winds show up again.
And yeah, when the cams came back online this year, a newly hatched condor chick was already in the nest. Biologists with the Ventana Wildlife Society had been monitoring the nest, and so they knew an egg was in there. They knew incubation was happening, and they estimated the egg would hatch around May 5, and then hatch was confirmed on May 7. So yeah, that's when somebody in the YouTube chat was wondering, when the condor chick was born, and somebody else was also wondering if they were still endangered. So certainly they are. So they're not out of the woods yet, so to speak. With only a few hundred birds in the wild, lead poisoning is still a serious issue in parts of their range. There's still a lot more work that we need to do to ensure the survival of condors. But we have a lot of time to observe this family, the behavior of that young bird. And Brian, I might make all the eagle fans a little bit mad, but I think condor chicks are cuter than newly hatched eaglets. So if any eagle fans out there want to fight me about that, Yeah, I'm sure I'll see those comments. But yeah, it's going to take about 100 days for this chick to reach about adult mass. And that's still approximately maybe like 60 to 70 days before it actually fledges and leaves the nest. So a long time to watch this bird on the nest. And the cam is set to turn on around 9 a.m. Pacific time and turn off around 3 p.m. And that's maybe just to conserve power. But if we can improve the power system, then certainly we'll keep the camera on longer. So condors are still endangered. The loss of any single condor is still a significant loss for their populations. Avian flu, for instance, killed more than 20 birds in 2022. Lead poisoning is still a big issue. Other condors have died or disappeared during wildfires. You mentioned that earlier, Brian, with like the Dolan fire sweeping through this area that killed off one of the previous males on this territory. Redwood Queen had a former mate, Kingpin, and he disappeared during the Dolan fire in 2020. And restoration efforts, again, they haven't achieved self-sustaining wild populations quite yet, but we can get there. We work really hard, especially if we can control, the effects of lead in the environment. This single condor chick to me is really a symbol of hope for this species.
Man. Then moving on over to Africa, we have 2 new cameras introducing our new cheetah cameras.
Yeah, this is something really new to me. I was even listening to, the last Africam show where they were talking about cheetahs, and, Trishala, who has been hosting most of our Africam shows recently, talked about how even, when she's on safari, she doesn't get to see many cheetahs. So she was excited for this camera. And we've highlighted the Hoedspruit Endangered Species Center in South Africa before regarding its rhinos. However, it began as a conservation center for cheetahs. And the center continues to that work today. And now we have that opportunity to get to know its cheetahs. And we have 2 cameras there. They're sisters, Adine and Filipina. Adine is described as calm and collected. Filipina is described as an attention seeker and frequently purrs in the presence of her keepers. I actually didn't know that cheetahs could purr. Evidently they can. So that is a cool little trivia fact. If you want to name a big cat that purrs, that's a cheetah can do it. People were wondering about the pregnancy in these cheetahs as well. So both cheetahs are possibly pregnant. Female cheetahs at the center are introduced to a coalition of males, but they're kept separate until a female tends to show interest in a particular male. And then the male is placed in the female's enclosure if she shows interest in him. And this is done with careful regard to genetic diversity, because there's only about 7,500 cheetahs in the world. Most of the wild cheetah population is in southern Africa. So the genetic diversity of cheetahs is really maybe the most important consideration when they're trying to make breeding attempts. And then on that Africam show on May 14 that was hosted by Trishala, she was joined by Antoinette from the Hoedspruit Endangered Species Center. And Antoinette was talking about how it's quite difficult for people to tell if cheetahs are pregnant. Female cheetahs are really good at hiding any physiological or behavioral changes that might reveal pregnancy. So within a month or so of the expected due date, these cheetahs will be moved to a different enclosure where they can hopefully give birth, and we'll maybe be able to, see some cheetah cubs in the near future.
Very cool. I'm super excited to hopefully see some little ones. But Mike, and these are king cheetahs, right? So what makes them the king cheetahs?
Yeah, this was news to me as well. I didn't know there was a thing called a king cheetah until we started to talk about these cameras. According to the Hoedspruit Endangered Species Center's website, a king cheetah is just a rare color variant found in cheetahs. And I think this is just a great look. The spots are larger than most cheetahs, and they also have a prominent stripe running from head to tail on the top of their back. So they just are a bit more melanistic in their fur coloration than most cheetahs. Otherwise, everything else is the same. But again, preserving genetic diversity of these rare felines is probably, again, the most important reason for breeding these so-called king cheetahs, again, with the hopes of returning their offspring to the wild. And that is the ultimate goal for the Hoedspruit Endangered Species Center. Again, we might have the chance to see cheetah cubs soon. So I'm looking forward to that over the next few months.
Same here. And you can watch the cheetah cams at explore.org/cheetahs. And as we anticipate the new arrival of cheetah cubs, we are also anticipating fledges and hatches of our bird cams. So let's get the latest on Egg Watch.
So much to talk about on Egg Watch. So I'm going to roll through this fairly quickly. Not really any changes with our bald eagle cams. Same number of birds in the nest that we saw last time. So 3 in the West End nest, 2 in the Fraser Point nest, 2 in the Decorah North nest. We're looking at, maybe the first fledge for our bald eagle cams in early June with the West End nest. So over the next few weeks, that's going to be an event to watch for. I think that'll be really cool. We might just see them just take off and launch from the West End nest. And then we're looking for mid to late June fledges for the other nests. With our peregrine falcons in downtown Baltimore, Maryland, that's sort of like fledging for them is sort of like a prolonged process. And that's sort of already begun. They're really doing a lot of exploring away from, sort of like the scrape where the eggs hatched, which is down below where this bird is perched right now. So they're exploring the ledges. They're moving around. They're much more mobile than before. So true fledge might happen very soon for them, but we might not see it on the cameras if they've just moved out of our line of sight. So congratulations to Bo and Barb for raising their 4 young there. And then with owls, it's same process going on right now. Long-eared owls, it looks like those young chicks, they've already left the nest. They've been branching. They've been moving on. I checked this morning. I really didn't see any recent screenshots of the young birds in the long-eared owl nests either. So they may have already sort of flown the coop. Great horned owl nest is same process is happening. The young birds maybe aren't capable of true flight quite yet, but they're able to do very short hops and short flights from tree to tree. They're moving around quite a bit. I know the camera operators have been doing a lot of work there. Oh, and Brian, there was a bear seen like a couple of days ago on this camera, so that was really neat to check out as well. So you never know what you're going to see on Explore.org. Moving on, Canada geese, Decorah at the Decorah Eagle's Nest in Decorah, Iowa. We have been watching one goose there. I was expecting this egg to hatch already by now, and it hasn't hatched. So maybe that egg is not viable yet, or right now. So we'll be watching over the next few days. I think that'll certainly tell us whether that egg is viable or not. Great blue herons, 3 chicks in the nest. Last time we talked to you, we only knew about 2. And expected fledge for these birds, 7 to 8 weeks. So we're going to see them grow quite rapidly, these little dinosaurs doing their thing in that nest. Wading birds, tons of activity there. Snowy egrets, great egrets, wood storks. I mean, you name it. So check that out. Check it out for its alligators too. Osprey, on Hog Island, with the boathouse there, 3 eggs. First egg laid on May 8th, second on May 12th, third on May 15th. And the expected hatch is mid to late June. Those eggs are going to hatch at different times. So we'll see 1 chick and then hopefully a couple of others coming after that. So mid to late June for those birds. Chesapeake nest with Tom and Audrey in the Chesapeake Conservancy, 2 eggs in that nest right now. This is their second attempt, their second clutch. We might see a mid to late June hatch for them as well. And then finally, with our research project, our research institute in Charlotte, Montana, who helps us with our Charlotte Osprey cam and our owl cameras in Montana, expected hatch there in mid-June. First egg was laid in May 2nd, second egg May 5, third egg on May 8. And then we already talked about puffins, but yeah, May 9 was when the egg was confirmed. We don't know exactly when it was laid, but incubation lasts about 40 days. So perhaps mid-June at the latest for them. And then condors, we know there's a chick in there. The first real flight can happen anywhere between 50 and 180 days after hatching. So we have a long time to go before that condor chick leaves the nest.
Very cool. Thank you, Mike, for that update. And before we get moving on to the new comment systems, we have a couple more things. But first, neighborhood nature.
Yeah, if you want to share your neighborhood nature stories with us, I'm always looking to see what you're seeing in your area of the world, whether that's something you can see from the, a patio from an apartment building, or a lake that you like to visit, or the trees that you like to visit, or maybe some cool wildlife that you saw in the area, please send maybe a photograph in a description of what you saw to feedback@explore.org, and we can follow up with you if we choose your feature for a show for a gift from explore.org. And I think we did have a submission this week, Brian, about a tree.
Yeah, you got a tree, and then we are talking about hummingbird feeders on our last show, so we also got a tree that featured also a hummingbird feeder.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So thanks, Christina from North Carolina, for sharing this with us. Catalpa trees, yeah, they are really beautiful. Christina wrote in, it says, "This is my catalpa tree, home to the catalpa caterpillars in summer who defoliate the tree, but it comes back abundantly every year, a resting place for the hummingbirds to come to the feeder." Yeah, so beautiful tree. It's always, for me, to have a tree that I can get to know is always like a source of comfort. So thanks, Christina, for sharing that with us. Now, Brian, I had a neighborhood nature idea that I wanted to share or seen, but this one is very different. Something that I had never seen before. So on a rainy night last week, I was out looking for amphibians when I found a moth on the road, and I just wanted to take a close look at it and identify what species it was. So I took a photo of it. I could tell it was drinking water, but I was surprised when I took a real close look at it to see jets of water shooting out of its rear end. My video is a little bit shaky. Yeah, it's just like one of the weirdest things that I've ever seen. So these are anal jets, essentially. It caught me by surprise, as did the frequency of them. It was like every 2 to 3 seconds. I wondered what was going on, of course. And drinking water, or well, let me back up a little bit and just say that butterflies and moths drink water or other fluids from objects other than flowers, and it's a behavior called puddling. This seemed different, though. I mean, it was drinking water directly off the road. The amount of fluid that the moth was pumping through its body, though, was tremendous compared to its size. The water looked like it was just going straight through the moth. So got home after a bit of searching. I found a study from 1995 out of Cornell University that proposed a reason for this behavior. The study found that males of this species of moth, which I think is Gluphisia septentrionsis. Sorry for our, I apologize to our closed captioner for trying to spell that. This species drink fluids rapidly to sequester salt in the liquid, and this species of Gluphisia has specialized mouth parts and intestines to drink and process high volumes of water. Lab analysis of the butt water found that the ejected water was deficient in salts. So what's the point of this behavior? During mating, the male transfers the salt to a female through his spermatophore, and this was deemed a nuptial gift by the researchers who described it. And the gift included more than half the male moth's body sodium. So wow. The diet of this moth's caterpillars is very low in sodium. So the gift of sodium could provide them with a valuable package of nutrients that would otherwise be in short supply. Brian, although I enjoy science fiction stories, sometimes I only need to look at the behavior and physiology of insects to remind myself that from a human perspective, we share Earth with some really strange critters compared to the way that we do things.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I've definitely never seen that. So coming up, be sure to stick around to the end of the show for the new comment system update. But before that, we have some other shows this week. This morning, if you didn't catch it, you can catch it next week, every Tuesday, the Africam show, where you can go on a live wild safari. And then Wild Moments coming up on Thursday at 7 a.m. Pacific. And this week, they are going to be talking more about the new cheetahs. So be sure to tune in for that. And then the next More to Explore episode will be on June 3rd. And to keep up with explore.org, in the meantime, you can follow us on any of your favorite social media channels, including our main YouTube channel, Explore Live Nature Cams, where we have a more in-depth video of meeting the new cheetahs. And Mike, as far as following on social media, how else can people get involved with explore.org?
Yeah, of course, we welcome people to chat in the comments of what they've been seeing, and we welcome volunteers as well. They're sort of one of the backbones of explore.org. If we were to have many backbones, that is, I need to maybe come up with a different metaphor than that, because we have many people who support us, but our volunteers are just, one of the pillars. I guess that be a better way to say it. Join us as a camera operator or moderator. If you think you have the time, go to explore.org/volunteer, fill out the form there, and we'll get back to you with more information. And I do want to thank, Brian for taking the time to set up our program today, pulling all of those clips for us, doing the production side of things, and joining us for on-air live commentary. This is our conclusion of our main section of More to Explore. I'm going to stick around for just a little bit longer to bring in Candice Rush, who is our Director of New Media, because we want to talk about the commenting system on explore.org and some updates. So Candice, good morning to you. How are you today?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's been a little bit of a busy morning, but I'm happy to be here and always really excited to talk about the comment system that we've been working really hard on for the last 8 months now. It's been a bit. Yeah, thank you for having me. The last you guys probably heard from me is, if you're on YouTube, you're welcome to hang out. And we encourage you to continue to go to explore.org, the actual website, and you can see the comment system that I'll be talking about. But yeah, the last you heard from me about the comment system, I had put up a survey on the website asking about like some additional features we were working on and what you guys thought about that. But in that survey, I learned that some people had requested features that were already present in the system. So I thought I'd go through some of those and show you guys some things that the system can do, and then give you an update on some of the new features we're working on. So the first, yeah, go on.
I can definitely, help you along here, Candice. Because you gave me the list of questions ahead of time, and it's been really interesting to see how the commenting system has developed and improved over the last few months. I know one person was wondering, though, about showing and hiding media individually, whether you can do that or whether you just need to do the whole thing. So yeah, how does someone show or hide media?
Right. So this person, Levitt, has seen this hide media at the top. So at the top here, this is going to hide media for the whole comment board. And they were asking, how do I hide media individually? So they don't want to hide media for the whole comment board, but maybe, sorry, Camelot Maisie, I don't want to see this Tales from the Field. So I can just, on the individual comment, that's how you do it. And that'll just hide the media for that specific comment. So you can do it for the whole board at the top, or here in the individual comment itself.
Then another question that we got was about posting multiple pictures. Somebody wrote in and said, how do I post multiple pictures or GIFs and be able to have the captions for each posted between the picture or the GIF?
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna have to save a couple photos so I can demo this for you. Thank you for everybody who's taken snapshots. Should have had this prepared beforehand.
Well, I use the snapshots from people all the time. Often we and Charlie Annenberg says this frequently. He's like, if you've seen a highlight from us, it likely originated from a snapshot where we were just looking through what viewers saw, and it was like, oh, that looks really interesting. I wonder what happened, and we were able to pull that clip and look at it more closely and share it with the world. So thanks everybody for doing that.
Okay, I'm gonna try to navigate myself back to the live events board. Okay, so this was one of the biggest requests we got when we first did the new comment system, was being able to support inline photos. So the carousel view is great when you have a lot of photos and you don't want to basically take up the whole board with like 15 photos, but individually adding photos, it sort of creates like a photo story. So you can do that, and you start that by just upload a photo like regular, open it. And then when you scroll over that photo, you'll see this pop up where it says insert into comment. So you can do that, and then it pops it into the comment, and you can talk about, photo 1. And then you just do that again. So you do that, you pick a different photo, it uploads it, insert into comment, Photo
And it looks
2.
like it puts it right where your cursor is. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, it puts it right where your cursor is.
Awesome.
This should work for GIFs as well. If that does make me point out, we do get some emails asking how people can upload videos. For the moment, we only support a native upload of a photo or a GIF. If you want to share videos on the board, we recommend using YouTube or Vimeo or Facebook or another video hosting site. Videos are quite expensive to store, so we don't support that at the moment. But yeah, that's how you do it. So you just attach a file, pick the file, and then insert into comment. And then send. And then this is how that'll pop up for you.
Cool. And follow-up question to that, Candace, is it for you, is it GIF or GIF?
I feel very strongly that it is GIF. It's a
Really? Okay.
yes, yeah. I firmly believe that it's GIF and not GIF.
I agree though. So, okay.
I understand that this is a contentious part of the internet, so if you disagree, please email us at feedback and I will give you all of my reasons about why it is GIF.
I was thinking about this just as a joke because I was thinking about asking you that question, but
Yeah.
I was like, well, there's how many words start with like a soft G sound? Like, I don't know, like girl,
Right.
good.
Grill.
But then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, what about giraffe?
Giraffe.
And I was like, so I don't know. I'm not going to let hard
this
facts
is
get in the way of my opinions. So that's
right.
the way the world works now.
I agree. Yeah. Turns out English is nuanced and different for everybody, and both are probably correct, but it's one of the great internet debates. Like, is the hot dog a sandwich? Got to pick a side.
I don't want to get into that one quite yet, especially since it's after my lunchtime. But
right.
Moving on though. So somebody was wondering about clearing notifications. They wrote in and said, how do I clear all notifications?
Oh, hey Mike, can you maybe react to that post I just made so I can show people?
Yeah, let me refresh that. I think you're in the live chat feed
I am
right
in
now.
the live chat feed, yeah.
I see it. All right. I am going to give you a thumbs up.
Just take a second. The known issue of having to refresh to see new comments and notifications and stuff is pretty high on our list of things that are to work on. But it's what our developer calls a quantum bug that only exists when you're not looking at it, which is fun. So thanks, Brian. So this person sees this right mark as red. So this will clear this individual notification. But if I had a whole bunch, you'd click this one up top, which is mark all as red, and that'll clear everything in your notifications right here. So mark all as red, mark this one as red. Or I could reply right here in the notification screen. So I'll do that. I'll mark all as red. Fantastic.
And tagging is one of those new features that I think a lot of people are going to utilize. So somebody was wondering, how do I tag somebody in the comments?
Yeah, so to tag somebody, you just type @ and we'll do Mike Fitz and do their name. Now, if you type @ and nothing and you know their username and it's not showing up, they have to have commented once in the new system for it to be available to tag. So maybe they haven't shown up in a while, especially, and I do anticipate this coming into bear season as some of the old bear regulars come back and maybe they haven't commented over the winter. So maybe give them some time to show up, comment, announce their presence, and then they'll be registered in the new system and you'll be able to tag them. But yeah, it's just @ and then type their name, Explore Brian, and then there you go.
And filtering by date too. The filter feature, I think, is one of the things that I'm going to be using a lot especially during bear cam season, the summer, if I want to see like a comment on a certain day, maybe even about a certain bear. So somebody was wondering about how do I filter by date?
Yeah, this was one of the we did the initial comment survey about what people wanted, and they really, really, really wanted a date filter. So this filter icon up top here, filter, you toggle this on, and maybe I want to know what comments happened during the last More to Explore at the beginning of the month. So you can do one day or you could do multiple days. So I'll just do that. And then you do apply filters. And then it'll load all the comments from that day. You can also stack comments. So maybe this won't be super relevant for this board, but you could filter by day. And then if you're like, I know that Otis showed up on this day, so you could filter by day and then also by hashtag as well. Again, there you go. And if those things exist, it'll happen, but there are no results because nobody talked about Otis on this board that Monday. But yeah, you can sort of fine tune things. The other filters are cool too. You know, if you just want a mod post, you can do that and only the mod stuff will show up. And then if it's highlighted blue like this, that means you've got a filter present. You just reset filters and then it's gone. So yeah, go here, you toggle it on, pick your day, apply filter. There you go.
And a similar question to that, somebody was wondering about seeing old comments. So what would be the process of finding old comments?
So there's a few ways to do that. You can use that same date filter if you're looking for other people's old comments. If you're looking for your own old comments or old notifications, here you go to this bell here, you see archive notifications, and these are all of your old ones, and you can load more and continue and just scroll down. So if you want to check back in on something that you did a month ago or several months ago, you can view it here. If you go to your own profile as well, you can see your comment history, and this is a new and highly requested feature.
Somebody did actually in the YouTube chat had a follow-up question about, I think perhaps in response to what you said about pictures and showed us there. Somebody was wondering, do the photos you post have to be only from explore.org cams? Or otherwise should they be tagged as off topic? I think personally, depends on what you're looking at. If you were took a boat tour out to Puffin or out to Seal Island to view puffins, and you were like, hey, I took these pictures of the island. Seal Island is so amazing. Here's some pictures of puffins. That would be on topic, because that's directly associated with the cams and the experience that people have on the cam watching experience. Same thing with brown bears, like in Katmai. If you go to Brooks River in Katmai, where we have the bear cams, you take a photograph there, you want to share it with our audience, that's certainly not off topic. What do you think, Candace?
I think that's perfect guidance. Yeah, I think if it's related to the cameras, especially as we get closer to bear season, I imagine a lot of people will go to Brooks Camp and want to share on Bear Cam what they saw there. I think that would probably be on topic, but obviously follow the mods guidance on the board. But if you want to share a photo of your dog or what you made for dinner or something like that, that's going to be off topic. But you're more than welcome to share photos outside of Explore, for sure. And then just use, your best judgment about, could this be related to the camera or the partner? Then you don't have to mark it as off topic. If it's just something interesting and social, maybe you mark it as off topic.
And final question, Candace, what new features have been added to the comments recently?
Yes, so the most recent new feature is this comment history tab on your own profile. So this is where you can see all of your own old comments. We do have a bug that was reported to us yesterday, which I am also seeing, which we kind of love when one of the staff members gets the error, so we don't have to try to jump over ourselves trying to replicate the error. But they do know why this is where your blocked users would be, and it's throwing this. So they do know what's happening, and we hope to have a fix for that soon. But the newest one is comment history. But we're also working really hard on some other new features that we talked about in that survey. So from the survey, the most and overwhelming majority of you really wanted a few things. So we are working on the ability to follow a post. So you'll be able to, click these 3 dots and follow that post and then get a notification for that post. We've got people who really want to be able to follow a person. Mike, I'm pretty sure you're going to be the most followed person come bear season, where you get a notification about following that person. Very overwhelmingly, a lot of people wanted us to add a filter where you could filter by username. So you could maybe type @MikeFits here, apply the filter, and then see all of Mike's comments on Bearcam. So we're working on that. And we're also giving people the ability to choose to make their comment history public. So right now, if I click any other user here and I go to their profile page, I just see their snapshots. And that would give you the ability to also see their public comment history if they so choose to make their comment history public. That is going to be an individual choice. So those are the things that we're working on right now. One really good piece of feedback when we were working on it was like, I want a notification, but I don't want it to show up in all of my notifications. So we're experimenting with like a third following tab here where all of the notifications for posts and people you follow might be in their own window. So look for that. That's currently underway. Don't have any timeline for when it's going to be released, but the survey was extraordinarily helpful in us deciding how you guys wanted us to add these features and move forward.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all the questions that we had sort of prepped right now. Candace, anything else that you wanted to share?
I don't think so. I really appreciate everybody giving us their feedback and being patient with us as we move forward with this comment system. I think overall it's been really good for the community. And so if you see any bugs, you can use that Google form that's been shared around by mods, or you can email us at feedback@explore.org. Your emails and your reports really, really are helpful in improving this. If you've got an idea for a feature that you think might be good, please email us, send it. Now that this is our own system, we have the ability to make it, what we want for you guys. So thank you for your collaboration, and we're always here to answer questions.
Well, thanks, Candace, for taking the time to join us and giving us that little tutorial. Looking forward to the new commenting system on Bearcam this summer.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks to everyone who joined us today. Thanks to Brian Bird, my co-host for the More to Explore show. Thanks to our moderators, camera operators, and join us again on June 3rd. That's our next episode of More to Explore. And until we talk to you again, as we like to say at explore.org, never stop learning.